The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Jeff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at jeffbanks.bet.
Welcome back to the Final Furlong podcast. It is great to have your company and also great to be joined by the lead data analyst for RaceIQ, who is going to shine the spotlight and give us all the final pieces of the puzzle that we badly need for the key races at Cheltenham. Paige Fuller, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me again. It's been a while.
I feel like if I don't say one of our favourite guests, then people will start going, oh, this is somebody who's one of our favourite guests, obviously, Paige Fuller as well. So, look, Paige, the RaceIQ data has been quite revolutionary. It's been absolutely brilliant so far. Congratulations on all of the good stuff that's been coming along with it. You can go onto the Racing TV website and you can also now take full advantage of the RaceIQ data on the results page as well.
Yes, that's correct. It's pretty recent, actually. It was only last week that website, but it's a really exciting moment because I know that everyone's been like, why can't we have the data? But as I think I probably mentioned last year, the amount of like engineering work that I didn't realize happened to like just flash a few numbers on the screen. It's for me been a big learning journey, but yeah, for them all at Ellipse where I work to have got all the engineering work done, to be able to get all the RaceIQ data onto the Racing TV website now. It's a big milestone and a really exciting one to be able to share it with everyone so that you all can like make your own opinions on it, because you don't need me running you through what I think is relevant, because it's like the form book, isn't it? Some things you might think are more relevant than others, and you know that's the beauty of it all.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about it, and it's one of the things I love about racing. We can all see the same horses, we can all see the same races, have access to all the same information, and come to radically different opinions. But I am very, very keen, if I could use my mouth words correctly. Can you tell it's been a busy time and my brain might be broken? I am very keen to get your interpretation of the data. So we'll begin with the order of the presentation. Supreme Novice Hurdle to kick things off. We're going to look at the RaceIQ data for the Supreme Novice Hurdle, obviously. Kopek Des Bordes is, look, clearly he was visually massively impressive in what he did. But it wasn't just the visual impression, it was also the factual information that you were able to share with us too. What was the real takeaway from his Dublin Racing Festival performance that made you go, wow?
I think the main thing was how much his jumping had improved. Like, obviously, the first time he ran, like, we couldn't really see him because it was pretty foggy. But he jumped a bit like a camel, to be honest. And it was quite impressive for him to have won like he did, despite, you know, as you can see there, he got a jump index of 5.6, which is pretty poor. Basically, the jump index is a new metric that we released this year for the start of the season, the jump season, and it's kind of trying to condense the lengths gain jumping, like where lengths gain jumping was very much horse versus horse in a race. Like the jump index is comparing all of those metrics that we use for lengths gain jumping, but instead of comparing against the other horses in the race, we're comparing against like all the jumps we've seen, like adjusted for each jump. So, you know, just because they're jumping a water jump doesn't mean they get a like 9 or 10 because it's a tiny fence. Like we sort of adjust for all the different tracks, goings, fences, all the distances, and then give the horses a score out of 10. So that now gives us that, you know, actual objective quantification that he jumped poorly. Like he jumped to 5.6, which anything under a 6 is poor. And then you look at him at the DRF and he's got an 8, and he gained over 10 lengths jumping as well. So he clearly was far superior to his rivals. And actually his win time was pretty quick as well. Like he was one of only 2 horses to clock a sub 4-minute win time over the obstacle, which was pretty impressive as well. So yeah, I think he's pretty solid for me at the top of the market for sure.
I mean, we could all see even through the bad fog that the jumping was just terrible on his debut, and that was one of the things that put me off him. Clearly the engine is there, he was an impressive winner of his bumper, but if you're going to jump like that, you're not going to win a Grade 1. And he rocks up to the DRF and he gets a lengths gain jumping of 10.72 according to your data, which was the highest of any horse over the 2 days of the Dublin Racing Festival. So he goes from being a drunken sailor over hurdles, actually a drunken sailor would probably jump better, to being almost, not quite flawless, but pretty much flawless, and the best of the horses to run over that weekend. If he keeps going the right way, then he's going to take a hell of a lot of beating in the Supreme Novice Hurdle.
100%. And I think what's key for me is the fact that he, like, yes, he's now jumping better, but it's not like a Salvador Monday where you go, oh, he only just jumped well enough and he nearly threw it away jumping like that. Like, he jumped like a camel and still won easily.
Yeah.
And so it's that, like, if he's going to even post a 7.5 performance at Cheltenham, like, he doesn't even need to jump to an 8 that he did at the DRF. Like, he's just obviously got both the engine in between the fences and the engine over the fences now.
Well, the betting's obviously a key factor as well. Jeff Banks' bet goes 6-4 on Kopek Des Bordes. It's now non-runner, no bet. I'm guessing it's going to be even money on the day, because I'd be surprised if the on-course bookmakers don't want to try and fill up the satchels, take on the big short price favourite, see if they can get the loot. Hopefully they won't. Hopefully we'll be in the winner's enclosure, assuming you're going with us, and assuming Paige is going to side with Kopek Des Bordes as well. Romeo Coolio 4-1, Salvatore Mundi 6-1, third favourite. So I would imagine he's going to be Danny Mullen's ride. A lot of money for Aranci, who Kate Young was putting up on the show at a big price not so long ago. And Work Ahead, we spoke to the trainer of Work Ahead, Henry de Bromhead, on the Final Furlong podcast just yesterday. That episode is available for you as a podcast audio exclusive. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, tune in, just search Final Furlong podcast and you can hear an informed Nico de Boinville talking about all of his rides and every single horse that Henry de Bromhead will be sending to Cheltenham, and we thank both of them for their time. It was a lot of fun. You can get those episodes right now on the Final Furlong podcast. But of his main rivals, who really stood out to you as one that would be a particularly interesting one that might improve, or was there a key piece of data from any of his rivals that made you go, oh, you're very interesting?
So, having just said about how much of a question mark Salvador Monday's jumping is, I do think he's been written off too quickly. And it's a very controversial opinion. But I do genuinely think that Paul Townend's hand was forced in the way that his average entry speed over the first 4 hurdles in his latest race was 27 miles an hour with a low of 25 miles an hour at the 4th hurdle. And he's a really powerful, like, strong travelling horse. And you could see as soon as Paul was, like, pulling his back teeth out, he had to put him right to the bottom of the hurdles and almost, like, make him lose his confidence, because otherwise if he was going to wing, like, he winged the first hurdle, jumped it really well, and then from that point Paul was like, right, I've got to get you right to the bottom of each hurdle. And you can't expect a horse to suddenly go at the end of the race, oh yeah, I know that you've been pulling my back teeth out and putting me right to the bottom of the hurdle, and now you want me to wing them. Like, they're not machines like that. And I just don't think he will jump as badly as he did last time, because I think it will be run at a stronger pace. He's clearly got a massive engine in between his obstacles. And I just think people are writing him off way too quickly. Like, I'm not saying he's, I think Kopek Des Bordes is probably the better horse, but I just think people were very quick to write him off after that latest start.
Yeah, my reaction that day watching the racing TV coverage was, good horse, won't win the Supreme, but he's good and he's going to have a bright future. The more I look at him, though, and maybe this is just the instinctive thing of you're looking at a short price favourite, and so you're trying to make an excuse for something that's a so-called value price, but actually you're really just talking yourself out of a winner. But I'd imagine Danny Mullins is pretty excited about partnering him, and why wouldn't he be? He's got experience of Cheltenham. They took him there to run in the Triumph Hurdle. That was his hurdling debut. That doesn't always work out well, though. For some reason, second season hurdlers don't have a good record in this race. You'd think it would work pretty well for them. But I think the point you make about the fast pace, bigger field, improving his jumping, he's a player for sure. Anybody else to stand out, or will we kick on to the Arkle?
Not for me personally. I think the only thing I would say is that the metrics themselves, like, come out very favourably in terms of the new line. Like, I really hope that the new line does go to the Turners. I think he will be a better horse than the Turners, but the new line's jumping is particularly slick. Like, I think he is going to be one of the best jumpers in the race. Like, he's really fast away from his hurdles, and actually chuck him into the Supreme, which I don't know why they would do, but I do think that Harry Skelton is correct in the sense that his jumping is certainly slick enough to lay up in a Supreme. and he could be an interesting addition to that field.
It would have been some crack if there'd been yet another turnaround, like a flip at the last second, and they went, "Oh no, we're going to put him in this ring." It's happened before. Brave Inca did it back in the day, but I think we've had enough of the whole lossy mouth, will she, won't she, and we still don't even know as you and I are recording on Friday afternoon. Let's switch to the Arkle. So Majborough, Triumph Hurdle winner, obviously took advantage of Sergino's absence. He looks to do the same thing again this year, and it's a real shame we're not going to get that clash, but let's talk about the horses we've got in action. He looks very, very exciting. He looks very, very good. However, I couldn't help but notice, and I really want you to delve into the real key jumping data about Majborough. Jumping data for Django Boy, or Django Bay, the horse that Nico de Boinville is going to be partnering. He sounded reasonably bullish about. Not super confident, but expecting a good run for sure. That surprised me, Paige.
I think Majborough, look, if Majborough that we know the best of turns up, like, he's an exceptional jumper. And I know he wasn't the prettiest at the DRF, but the data tells us that even though he wasn't the prettiest, and I think this is going to be key, like when we go through the pack talking about other horses, like just because a horse, you know, doesn't always look pretty, it doesn't mean that they're not effective. Like, they might be wasting energy, but actually a really fast, slick horse that is taking every chance and really, you know, like Majborough, he was really fast, really slick, stumbled out on his nose a couple of times, but he's a young horse, he's a 5-year-old, like he's probably going to get the odd little speed wobble. So, you know, he is scoring really high because of that, even though he's not this sort of pretty rounded shape that Loda Sud does. Like, Loda Sud is clearly a very good jumper, but he just gives him a bit more air than Majborough. And so, whilst I think that's a massive string to Majborough's bow, it does leave that question of, coming into that downhill fence, if he falls out onto his nose like he did at the DRF, is he going to be able to pick himself up in the same? And actually, as you say, I think that leaves the door wide open for something like Django By, because he's the horse that has technically improved his jumping from hurdles to fences. So he was 146 rated hurdler, but his jump index was only like 7.3. Like, he wasn't an exceptional jumper over hurdles, but he was still 146 rated. Now he's moved fences, he's jumping them even better. Like, he's got a rating of 8.2, which I think is like the second highest of the field behind Majborough. And his debut at Cheltenham was an 8.8 on the jump index, which, if you look at Sandown the next time, he was an 8.3, not quite as good. So you could think, oh, maybe back at Cheltenham he's going to enjoy the track a bit better rather than bottomless ground around Sandown over 2.5 miles. And you look at the way he travels so strongly through the City Isles, and the winner just had the run of the race. So I don't think we saw the best of him in the City Isles. So even though I love Loda Sud, I think he's a gorgeous horse, like, it's definitely Django By that I think I'm looking at rather than Loda Sud as that sort of one that would pick up the pieces. I'm just not convinced that the way that this race is going to be run will suit Loda Sud either.
Yeah, that's a concern for me as well. I was really keen on Loda Sud for quite a while. I thought this was a really clever piece of strategy from Dan Skelton. How do we win the Arkle? We'll win it with experience. We'll be the most experienced horse. And he was brilliant at Cheltenham. I think they might have left that race behind them in Warwick, for one thing. And secondly, that RaceIQ data about Django Bay, whatever. But also the confidence that Nico de Boinville had on the Final Furlong podcast about him yesterday. He still doesn't understand how the horse got beaten at Sandown. Neither does Gavin Lynch, by the way. He was waiting on a big accumulator. Wasn't ideal. But he gets beaten by a horse who beat him over hurdles and is a very talented horse in his own right. And it probably was just stamina on horrible ground as well. So, yeah, Nicky Henderson's record in the Arkle is there for all to see, as is Nico's. And the RaceIQ data is very much pointing you in Django By's direction. For all that we should emphasise, this is Majborough's race to lose.
Yes, definitely. And I think that's key. It's like, you know, when you look at the Brown Advisory, so if you're Django By, you've got one race or the other, haven't you, to go for? You can either the Arkle. Well, in the Brown Advisory, you've kind of got 3 horses that have actually got really solid chances that probably aren't of the same quality as Majborough, because Majborough is clearly just different grade, and he gets you know, he does get an allowance, doesn't he? He must still get an allowance for being a 5-year-old in the Arkle, does he? I actually haven't even checked that, but I assume he does.
No. Showing your age, Paige Fuller. Back in the day when Wild Chief and Voipur Steadies would get it, but no, it's gone.
Has it? Oh, that's interesting.
But
I still don't think it makes a difference.
as a former jockey and as someone who has spent her entire life around horses, I have a question for you, because I was thinking about this today. That allowance really mattered back in the day because of the type of horse that was coming through. And I think one of the reasons why Patrick Mullins and Davy Russell and all these guys would just go, dirty old flat rats who can't stand these juvenile hurdlers. That's not actually the kind of horse you get anymore. You do sometimes get a high-class horse from the flat, like an East India Dock, Hello Neighbour. But Majborough is a French-bred national hunt horse. He's an unusual Triumph Hurdle winner. And when you look at him in his chase debut against Tully Hill and Asian Master, he dwarfs them. He's a monstrosity of a horse. So he's not really the typical precocious flatbred horse that's being sent juvenile hurdling. He's a national hunt bred that just happened to be fast enough to win a Triumph Hurdle.
Yeah, 100%. Like, he's got the frame to carry the weight, hasn't he? He's not going to struggle. And I think that's the exciting thing as well, is like, he's so big and strong now. Like, if he won the Triumph like he did last year, like, what beast have we got this year? Because he's clearly filled out and he looks a stronger horse. So
yeah, that's the other thing too. The more I look at Lotus Sod, and I'm sure he's better than a 150s horse over hurdles. I'm sure he was incredibly well handicapped going into the county hurdle and just bumped into a better handicapped Absurd, who's probably still extremely well handicapped for the county hurdle this year. Majborough only had 3 runs over hurdles and 2 in total in Britain and Ireland. Like, they're basically only a pound apart over hurdles, but that's because you've only seen Majborough twice. How much better could this horse be? It's very, very exciting. We'll switch to the Mare's Hurdle. The betting is headed by Lossymouth. Boo! Boo! Don't do it! Kind of do it, actually, because those of you who listen to the show on a long-term basis might remember that back in the Christmas preview, I said there wasn't a hope of this horse going for the Champion Hurdle, and that the whole point of her going to the Christmas Hurdle at Kempton was to be beaten by Constitution Hill and then go, oopsie, we can't go for the Champion. Oh, what a shame. We'll go for the Mare's Hurdle. And I put up Constitution Hill at least 3-1 and Lossymouth at least 3-1. I think I recommended an each-way double because people were having a pop at me, calling me a coward. Yeah, well, how's that looking now? I don't know, because she's on the drift for the Mare's Hurdle and no one knows what's going on. But somehow, over the last few weeks, I'd actually talked myself out of that logical process and spare a thought for Barry Doyle, who has a big bet on Lossymouth for the Champion Hurdle and might be getting screwed. She heads the betting to defend her crown as the 2-1 on favourite with Jeff Banks bet. Jade DeGrugy, her stable companion, who I'm sure Townend would like to ride, is 2s. And then the Mare's Novice Hurdle winner, Golden Ace, is 5-1. A lot of confidence, I thought, from... I guess you could argue that all connections of horses are going to be confident to a certain extent, but I detected quite a note of confidence from Henry de Bromhead about July Flowers. So, not to put any words in your mouth, Paige, let's go through your race IQ data. Who is standing out to you?
Yeah, I thought July Flowers was really interesting. She's gone on a lot of holidays backwards and forwards from Ireland and France, hasn't she? Like, she's never really settled, like, at all. And I thought her win last time was really interesting. Like, I don't think it is a shame. She's probably one of those who actually probably wanted a stamina test with a bit of rain, in my opinion. Like, I'm not sure whether, if this turns into a slightly sharp 2.5 miles, like, is that going to play to her strengths? Because, just say as well, this data pack that we're running through here, like, it is available to everyone to download. So if you think that anything that I'm saying is sensible or you miss it, you can recover it. But hopefully we'll cover it anyway. But yeah, I think July.
Wait a second, Paige. Whoa. Are you telling me this isn't an exclusive just for me? This is available to everybody.
Well, I felt bad last year, just say.
I thought this was like the VIP treatment. It's excellent, and it is available to everybody. And where do our listeners get it, by the way?
I think it's racingtv.com/RaceIQ Cheltenham or something like that. But there are lots of widgets everywhere. Just you on X, and I'll have something on there as well. I'm sure I need to make sure it's pinned.
Just Google specifically RaceIQ data, racing TV, or something like that.com.
Yeah, Exactly that. should have reminded myself before I came on, but we will. I'll make sure it's on Twitter.
Considering I forget my own head, Paige, so don't worry about it. As you know, waiting patiently in production for this show to begin recording. Anyway, moving swiftly along.
But yes, go back to Live Flower. You know, at the end of the day, we know she stays 3 miles because she was a very good third in the 3 mile French champion hurdle, which is bonkers as well. Like, it's so weird that you've got a champion hurdle over 2 miles here and 3 miles. Anyway. But actually, she wasn't the fastest in the race. You can see her top speed of 33.7 miles an hour, not in the French champion hurdle, sorry, but this was in her latest start, which I can't remember which race it was. Oh my God,
Leopardstown, where she beat Caliconte.
Yeah, exactly. I'm having complete...
It's okay, Paige.
Cheltenham blur.
Cheltenham is an insane time between you doing Road to Cheltenham, Cheltenham previews, all of the RaceIQ data you have to do, your appearance on this show. My head feels like it's about to explode, so don't worry.
So, yeah, when she beat Caliconte last time, they obviously went a really good gallop. And, like, pretty much every horse in the race hit their top speed in the first furlong because they just went flat out to start with. But she hit her top speed in the second last furlong. So, basically, A, Rachel Blackmore just gave her a brilliant ride. And B, she was able to quicken at the end of the race when they'd gone a good gallop. And I just hope that the 2.5 miles on watered, good soft ground is going to be enough of a test for her, if you know what I mean. But I think she's a very interesting contender for the Mares Hurdle for sure.
Okay, if Losty Mouth was to show up, don't do it, Richie Rich, don't do it. She's posted 5 jump index scores above 8, and she's got the fastest finishing speed in the data. So even though she's fallen last time out and they've gone a crazy gallop, because your data was saying Kopek Des Bordes was the fastest horse over the Dublin Racing Festival, and they were going in a quicker time than he was in the first circuit. So that was insane, guys. Does that still make her the one to beat, though?
Oh, yeah. And to be honest, I think because Constitution Hill's such a monster, he made Losty Mouth look average. But that doesn't mean that Losty Mouth's average. That just means that she's not supernatural Constitution Hill. So it depends what camp you are for Constitution Hill, doesn't it? Like, if you're not a Constitution Hill fan, then you'll look at that Kempton Christmas Hurdle and go, well, you know, Losty Mouth was beaten easier. But actually, you look at the way she ran on at the end of the race, considering how much she struggled at the start of the race, and she clearly learned from that, because as you say, you know, her and Stateman got racing a long way, well, from the start, and she was 6.18 seconds quicker than Kopek Des Bordes after the first mile, you know. And to be honest, like, she is a good enough jumper, and I think I think for the Mares Hurdle specifically, like, I'm not saying this will be the case for the Champion Hurdle, but she's against lesser horses, so her jumping won't be under so much pressure from the start in the Mares Hurdle, and I think it will give her that time to get her confidence from that fall last time. But supposedly she's been schooling very well, so, you know, I wouldn't worry about it having left its mark on her. But probably for this race, like, Champion Hurdle, it's a different kettle of fish, really, isn't it? But she doesn't get beat if she runs in this race, surely.
Okay, you've sold me. Does this make any sense to you? I do want to go on to the next one, but I had a fascinating conversation with Gavin Lynch about this. So just from a former jockey's perspective and the lead RaceIQ data analyst, I'd like to know your thoughts. Jade de Grugy gets an RPR of 151 for her win in Punchestown, which is only a pound below Losty Mouth's second to Constitution Hill in the Christmas Hurdle at Kempton, and equal to her beating the Stayers Hurdle champion and dual Hatton's Grace winner Tihupu in that race at Fairyhouse. Timeform did the exact same thing. Does that make sense to you?
I mean, I struggle to join the dots with Irish form at the best of times. So I don't know. I mean, I think she was really unlucky in the Mares Novice Hurdle last year because, you know, we were chatting beforehand. I'm not Golden Ace's biggest fan. Like, I think she has got lucky a couple of times because the races have gone her way. Like, I do think she's just below that top level. Like, she is a very good racehorse. But I think, you know, Jade Degree, like, basically the horses that could go fastest at the end of the Mares Novice won. Jade Degree, she literally had the fourth highest top speed and she finished fourth. I think, I can't remember what finished third, but
Nara?
You know, they had...
Was it Nara? It was the Henry de Bromhead filly, wasn't it?
Yeah. And, like, literally, she had the third highest top speed. Bryce Days Ahead had the
so close.
second highest.
Birdie or burst.
Oh. So, again, like, it's not going to be that sort of race. She's proved twice since that she's clearly a very talented animal. So, yeah, I think it could be a good race with or without Lossiemouth, but I still think that Lossiemouth wins.
Okay. So Lossiemouth to get the job done. If the 2-year plan goes out the window and they decide to go and defend their Mares Hurdle crown, which was predicted on this show by me, and then I somehow managed to talk myself out of it over the last while. I don't know. Maybe I just decided to actually listen to what was being said by Rich Ritchie and team. Okay, the betting for the Champion Hurdle is obviously headed by the monster, Constitution Hill, and the Irish monster, Brighter Days Ahead. Constitution Hill with Jeff Banks bet, non-runner, no bet, is 7-4 on. Brighter Days Ahead is 9-4. Lossiemouth is still in there, 11-2. Stateman, the reigning champion and Irish Champion Hurdle winner, 3-time winner of that race, 11-time Grade 1 winner, 8-1. And then it's whatever price you want about Burdett Road, Golden Ace, Winter Fog, and King of Kingsfield. So that's the betting. What is the race IQ data, though, telling us about one of the greatest to ever do it, Constitution Hill?
I was about to say it just basically affirms that he is the GOAT, in my opinion. I just, again, we were having a bit of a chat about this before, but considering he nearly didn't make it to Hampton because he missed so much work, to put context on the speed that they went in 2024 versus 2023, Burdett Road covered the first mile 7.5 seconds quicker in 2024 Christmas Hurdle than Constitution Hill covered the first mile in 2023 Christmas Hurdle. Like, they went so fast. Constitution Hill approached his hurdles a mile an hour quicker in the 2024 Christmas Hurdle than the 2023 Christmas Hurdle. And supposedly he only just got there in fitness.
And beat a race-fit rival and gave her weight in the process.
Yeah.
And was blowing a gale after the race because, as Nico de Boinville told us on the Final Furlong podcast yesterday, yes, he blew up. Coming to the last, he wasn't fit.
Yeah.
Oh, how far does he win by? How far does he win by?
Like, he's just... And the thing I loved is just how easy he made. So you look at 2023 and he went steadier. He hit 37 miles an hour. Rapid to be going into a hurdle at 37 miles an hour. So that's what he can do when it's a steadier pace. And then he, half fit, runs a mile an hour quicker on average and still hits 35 miles an hour and still finishes the race off like he did. I mean, if anybody didn't look at that and go, he is just as good as ever, then I think they're taking something like very strange.
So people would counter this argument by saying, hold on a second now, Paige, hold on. Calm your jets. He's had all these problems. He's had all these setbacks. And have you not seen the hot new young thing? Gordon Elliott says this could be the best horse he's ever trained. She's 3 from 3 this season. She's beaten the reigning champion hurdler on both occasions. A gutsy performance in the Moygiana. And then she explodes into life with one of the greatest performances ever seen in the history of Leopardstown Racecourse. How can you possibly take on Brighter Days Ahead?
Because Constitution Hill would like literally blow Stateman out of the water anyway. So who's she beaten? Like, you know, she's only won him. Obviously, he's like last year's champion hurdle winner, but he's not a very special champion hurdle winner, is he? Like, you know, let's be honest. He's a lovely, consistent horse, Stateman.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's one of those where she just doesn't, I don't know. It's, yeah.
She's not doing it for you.
No.
See, I don't believe the performance. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. It was incredible. I've seen plenty of wide margin winners. Hawkwing, Masterminded, Apples Jade. These are the horses that just come to the mind off the top of my head because I've been saying them on Cheltenham preview panels. They were very impressive wide margin winners, and then they blow out on their next start. Like, if she can do it, if she can come back from such an epic performance as that and win a champion hurdle against one of the greatest 2-mile hurdlers we've ever seen, then she is one of the best horses to ever do it. But the betting is telling you that the bookmakers don't think she'll do it because of how good Constitution Hill is. And if there was a sense of feeling that he's not really the horse he once was, then he wouldn't be as short a price as he is. He would be drifting, in my humble opinion. And I think he might drift on the day. I think there will be a lot of support for Better Days Ahead. But I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever he will win.
Yeah, and I mean, even you look at the data, and so comparing Constitution Hill's Unibet hurdle, even jumping like he did, where he jumped a few a bit slow in the air, he ballooned a couple because he was half asleep, then he walked through the last. Even when he doesn't visually look as impressive, he still scored an 8.6. And that is higher than Bryce Days Ahead, who's basically ever scored over hurdles. Like, she's still a very good jumper. Like, she's a bit scrappy. Like, don't get me wrong, like, she does clatter through them, but clearly it's still effective. But even Constitution Hill jumping when he's half asleep is better than Bryce Days Ahead has ever posted. So then you're going, okay, fine. So does that make her a better hurdler in between her hurdles? I don't know. Like, you look at, again, his top speed at Cheltenham when he was cantering. Well, even when they sprinted home at Cheltenham in March, she only reached 35 miles an hour. So, I don't know, it's just that kind of, like, granted, the ground was deteriorating, like, they're probably not comparable soft grounds, but I just can't get my head round at what point she's got an edge.
Fair play to them for going for it, though.
100%.
I mean, that's the thing that's annoying about Lossiemouth. Like, you can say, in a way, the Mare's Hurdle has now become a major problem because it is taking away from a championship race. And you could sort of argue against that when, oh, well, of course Honeysuckle's going to go for the race. She can't be Constitution Hill. We didn't know. We didn't know at the time. But the connections that a horse felt that they were doing the right thing, and it's not for me to argue with them about it. They're doing the right thing for them because the race is there. However, if the race is affecting a prestigious historic race, then it has to go. And now it is. Unless this is just everybody's going to be happy with Lossiemouth winning 6 Mare's Hurdles. In which case, okay, fair enough. Maybe we can have another Cheltenham bar called Lossiemouth. And I loved Quavega. Loved her. But this is crazy. And I don't think it's good overall. I have a slight note of caution, by the way, about Better Days Ahead. Jess Stafford was quoting a stat. I'm trying to get it up here on Proform, but I don't think I'm going to have time to actually fully research it. And of course, I should have done it beforehand, but why would I do that? Do something before we start recording? Oh, absolute madness. I believe...
I'm glad we were so well prepped, Emmet, for this. Like, just, obviously... all that time chatting before we were really busy prepping.
Oh yeah, just another day at Final Furlong Podcast Towers. I do have the stat. Thank you for covering, by the way. Capcard has had 66 runners at Cheltenham. This is data from this time last year, so this is actually worse now. I think Jess Stafford had 90 horses since. 66 runners, 15 horses place, 4 winners. I believe Jess's stat was something like 97 runners at Cheltenham, 4 winners. Not good. Not good. And her siblings to have run at Cheltenham, they all got beaten. Every single one of them to run there. And you can't explain to me, you kind of just did actually explain to me how she got beaten in the Mare's Novice Hurdle last year. The race wasn't run to suit her, but she should have been able to overcome that if she's as good as they say. So he's a multiple Cheltenham winner. He's one of the greatest of all time. She got beaten in the Mare's Novice a year ago. It's Constitution Hill all day long. And the RaceIQ data backs us up. So if he gets beaten, Paige, we're blaming you.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, and I would like to give State Man a shout out because I think you know, we can't just go like, oh, he's got no chance. I mean, he does have, like, in the nicest way possible, he does have no chance. But, like, he's still a very...
Shout out to the boy State Man. He ain't got no chance, but shout out to our boy State Man.
But, like, he's going to be there, isn't he? Like, I reckon he's still going to be placed, bless him. And, like, you know, whatever happens, I actually could still see him being runner-up. Like, in a funny sort of way. Like, he doesn't jump slick enough, especially now that the ground's quickening up. He's not win. But you just never know. One of them has to, you know, realistically, are both of Constitution Hill and Bryce Days Ahead going to be turning up? Like, that's not how racing works, is it? It'll probably be one or the other, and the other one will just flop, because that's what the racing gods normally send to us. And you just never know that he could be right there. Good old State Man. Like,
he'll be there. Good old State Man.
I mean, he's only won the 11 grade ones, and we're like,
yeah, just 11 grade ones. Champion 11. Hurdle winner, county hurdle winner, 3-time Irish champion hurdle winner. Good old State Man. He ain't no hurricane fly. We'll put it that way. There's a part of me was going to say, do you know what? I'll bet you a coffee that Winter Fog finishes in front of him, but that shouldn't happen unless something goes spectacularly wrong with him. He just doesn't look the right horse to me at all this year. I think do you know what? Winter Fog might beat him. Winter Fog might have finished in front of him in the Irish Champion Hurdle had things panned out a little bit differently in that race, and I will stick to that story. Shall we move on to day 2?
Sounds good to me.
All right, day 2 brings us to the Turner's Novice Hurdle. I don't know why people were saying, oh, Final Demand could be switching to the potato race. Seems like an insane thing to be saying. And Brian Drew seems like a lovely man. He will learn very, very quickly that Willie Mullins' opinion is the only one that counts in that yard. So you can appear on the Nick Look Show all you want and say 70-30, but you just own the horse and pay the training fees. You don't actually make the decision as to where the horses go. That's Willie Mullins' choice. And this horse is going to be running in the Turners. Cue, he gets pulled and goes to the potato race, and I look like a complete and utter moron. All right, what is the key piece of data about Final Demand and the new line? And that, for that matter, I think a horse that shouldn't be underestimated at all, the Yellow Clay.
So, I think I'll cover the Yellow Clay later on in the pack, hopefully. I haven't got him here. But I think the key thing with Final Demand, which I was impressed with at the DRF, was the fact that he can maintain his speed. Like, I think the weird thing with 2.5 mile and 3 mile races is, yes, you've got to stay for 3 miles, but sometimes in a funny sort of way, and actually I'm going to touch on this with Fact File as well, like, you almost have to overshort and not always have the ability to quicken at the end of the race like you do over 3 miles, because quite often over 3 miles you go steady and then have to quicken. But, you know, over 2.5 miles, you have to be able to maintain that stronger gallop and not necessarily quicken up that much at the end. You just got to be able to maintain that gallop. And I think that's what impressed me at the DRF, is that is what he did. You know, like he was the only horse in the race to finish with a finishing speed percentage of over 100. So his finishing speed percentage of 102% means that he was 2% quicker through the last 4 furlongs than he was through the rest of the race. And he completed the final furlong 3 seconds quicker than any other horse. So basically, they went a really, really good gallop, and he just kept galloping. And I think that's the sort of thing that separates a good horse from like an average horse, and that's where it's really difficult to compare the New Line and Final Demand. Completely different in the Charlo, hasn't he? Like Harry Skelson's just sat there like, oh, I've got the best horse. You know? And I was watching about the other day, and I was like I could not. You're riding a grade 1. You're riding into the last on a grade 1, a length down, and you're still sat up, having not pressed any buttons. Like, how could anybody be so confident on a horse? But Harry Skelton was.
I have a feeling. Do you know when he tucked inside? I have a feeling when he made that move to tuck inside, he was, I'm definitely getting you sold for £1 million. We are definitely getting 7 figures for you now.
But you know what I mean? Like, and obviously, like, it's really exciting to watch. But then as a punter, you're like, well, thanks, Harry. Like, how on earth are we meant to know what you were sat on now? Like,
at least get the shillelagh out a little bit to give us some sort of an idea. It was an extraordinary performance, though. I'm not sure I can't remember a Cheltenham Hurdle winner doing it in the way he did it.
No, and I think, the ground probably wasn't as testing as it can be at Christmas. Like, I think that helped him. I mean, how you compare those two horses, I have no idea, because, the New Lion was so impressive. I mean, it's very rare for a horse to finish the race off in the final furlong quicker than the second last furlong, but you could see as soon as Harry pressed the button, like, he was quickening up again. So there's no way that we saw best spin. But yeah, I must say I prefer, when you're going into these champion races, to see a horse that's been tested a bit more. And I think that final demand performance at the DRF just shows that he's tough, which I think we need to be at Cheltenham, if you know what I mean. We haven't seen that at the New Lion yet.
We've also got the stat from Paul Ferguson. Cheltenham Hurdle winners are 0 from 21. Now, I know what you're going to say. Oh, but it's always run on horrible ground, there's bad ground, and also the Nathaniel Lacey doesn't always throw up. Let's Dance went to win at Cheltenham from Nathaniel Lacey, and there's a couple of other horses have emerged from being beaten in that race to go on and win at Cheltenham. And I honestly don't know what to make of it, because I rewatched the New Line again last night. I watched it a week ago. I was like, Jesus Christ, that's unbelievable. And then watch Final Demand, and the goosebumps are back again. I'm like, oh, no, Willie's horse. And I did the same thing last night, but I watched the New Line second. I thought maybe this recency bias. Even though he's so visually impressive, there's something about it. I don't know, Paige. You've got Regent Stroll coming out and winning at whatever small track it was the other day. It's like, this form doesn't mean anything. World of Fortunes is backing up the form. You've got... There are horses I can point to and say, oh, well, they've actually gone and done something since. There's nothing I can look at from what he's beaten. He hasn't beaten a horse yet. Final Demand has beaten racehorses. The New Lion hasn't beaten a racehorse yet.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, you've got to hope, like, on my side of the RFC, some point, you've got the luxury of lots of nice, exciting novices on your side of the RFC that you can get excited about, but you've got to pray for our camp at some point that he is as exciting as he looks.
Did you like the fact that the leading Irish owner decided to buy your best racehorse? We're going to take that too.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, dear.
Of those two, though, who would you side with overall? What does the data and your gut tell you?
My gut goes Final Demand purely because, as I say, he's proved that he's got that ability to just gallop horses into the ground, if you know what I mean. I think you need that at Cheltenham.
Yeah, I think so. What does your gut tell you about the Brown Advisory and the now red-hot favourite Ballyburn? He was 7-4 with Jeff Banks bet only a couple of days ago. That's a distant memory. I'd like to think that some of the podcasts that I've been appearing on have had an impact on that. He just goes and wins. I really liked Ross Millar's assessment of him on the SPK podcast. It's like, there's so much nonsense being talked about this horse. Apparently, Paige, you're not allowed to appear in a Cheltenham preview. This is Ross Millar's line, unless you say, well, Ballyburn doesn't jump very well. That's like the standard thing that has to be said, and you're not allowed on a Cheltenham preview panel unless you're going to go with that absolute tripe and nonsense. His jumping at Kempton, bar the last, is really good, and you have all the data to prove it. So, even money Ballyburn, wide margin winner at Cheltenham last year. Is he going to follow up?
I don't know. It's so difficult because you look at a horse like Galopin, and he was winning Gold Cups jumping averagely. And I think the key thing is, once you get up to those 3 mile trips, 3 mile plus trips, is the emphasis isn't the same on that slick jumping, because if you jump slick, you lay up with the pace over shorter, but you don't have to be able to do that over further. So look, I wouldn't be back, like me personally would not be backing him at evens money. Like I think he's a bit slow in the air. But I just think that actually some of the competition is quite strong to be writing off too. So I just think it's dangerous. As much as anything, it's dangerous to play down Dancing City or Best Days Ahead. Like, you've got to remember that Best Days Ahead won the race that Galopin won before he went novice chasing. So I think this is a stronger race in terms of, I don't think the quality of Ballyburn is the same as Majborough's, but I think this is a more competitive race than the Arkle, for sure.
Oh, I see it the other way. I think Ballyburn is one of the classiest horses in training. And yeah, he wouldn't have won a champion hurdle and he got completely obliterated by Sergino. But I suspect Sergino would just murder most of the horses he comes up against. And hopefully we get to see him next year because that's a special talent. In behind in third at Kempton is Rubo, who's broken so badly by both Sergino and Ballyburn, he can't even get over the last. And he comes out and gives Low de Sud a bloody nose and then wins a grade 2. This is Jover. It's Jover. Ballyburn wins. And the key data, I will say, your RaceIQ data about his jumping did frighten the life out of me. But then immediately I'm right back onto, but look at his speed index. He has the elite speed. They don't have the elite speed. He's a point-to-point winner. If you watch his point-to-point back, and I was doing an X Spaces the other night, and I rewatched it because it's a few years since I'd seen it. It really is extraordinary. He has no chance rounding the final turn, and he's 5 lengths clear at the end. All he'll do is stay. And when he's coming to the last against Crow Park, Crow Park's leading him. That's a grade 1 winning chaser this season. He's improved no end. By the time they're getting to the line, Ballyburn is 5 lengths clear and going further away. The further they go, the better he will be. Am I making sense? Or do you need to tether me back down to reality and tell me, no, you've overestimated this horse, Emmet. You are wrong. You are wrong.
Look, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be favourite. I just don't know that he deserves to be even favourite. That's all I'll say. You're right though. At Kempton, they went so fast. Considering he's a horse that, he does have speed, but like we were talking about earlier, these 3 milers sometimes are better quickening off steady paces, which we know Ballyburn's got that speed to quicken off steady pace. And again, as we're talking, he's got this slow jumping that means that over 2 miles, 2.5 miles, against Sergino at Christmas, where Sergino's average entry speed of 32.31 miles an hour is nearly as quick as Constance. You go, okay, so that was very fast. And if you jump slowly and then you've got to get back up to that speed again, that's just not going to work.
Just to be clear, so the Starling kind of cut out. Did you say he was jumping almost as quickly as Constitution Hill, Sergino?
So let me just have it. So Sergino's average entry speed at Kempton was 32.31. Let me quickly scroll back up to my
please hold call. Your call is very important to us at Final Furlong Podcast Towers.
So Constitution Hill in 2024 approached his hurdles at 32.5 miles an hour. 2023, 31.58. When the ground was arguably a bit quicker in 2023 as well than 2024. So he was 32.5 in 2024 Constitution Hill, and Sergino was 32.31. So they went fast in that race.
How can you look at that date? This is the thing about interpreting that. How can you look at that data and not say, oh my goodness, Ballyburn's a certainty. If he stays, he wins. Because he'll stay.
But that's what if he's a 2.5 miler, but his jumping's letting him down?
Don't talk me out of it, Paige. Don't.
I'm not. Look, I'm not. Who deserves to be favourite? I'm not saying I know a lot of people, and it's like you say, it's a bit more. Oh yeah, his length gain jumping at the DRF he was still giving away lengths on his rivals, and I do think the key thing over 3 miles is he's not going to be doing the same thing. You don't have to rush back up to speed. You have time to gather yourself up after a fence, fill your lungs. It's probably going to help him stay. I just wouldn't be backing him at evens money. That's just Like, I just don't trust him. It's a bit like Galopin last year. You know, we were all going into his second Gold Cup going, and now we're just waxing lyrical about him. Like, how could we ever doubt him? Like, Ballyburn will be that horse next year, but I'm not going to put my money. I don't trust him with my money.
Okay, so who do you trust with your money then for the Brown Advisory based on the data and your gut?
I see. I don't. This is the other problem with a lot of the races with the evens favourites. It's like, what beats them? But this is why I think this race is quite interesting because, you know, you've got Park, who's not even like a really sure fancy in this race, but has only found Ballyburn too good over 2.5, and his jumping is super slick. So maybe he'll pick up the pieces of some of the horses that don't have slick jumping. But Dancing City, actually, I think, has been quite impressive in his last 2 hurdle starts last season when he won at the Aintree and the Punchestown Festivals. And what impressed me about Dancing City is he also seems very versatile in terms of run style. Like, I know obviously he was beaten at Cheltenham, but when he went back and beat the Jukebox Man at Aintree, like, they got racing a long way out. Like, that was a really strongly run race, and then he completely outstayed the Jukebox Man. So he finished with an FSP of 95.22%. So basically they were all knackered at the end of the race. But he completed the final furlong nearly a second quicker than the Jukebox Man. So even though he wasn't galloping like super strong to the line, he stayed up way better than the others. But then when he went to punch, he finished, he like massively quickened up. So he finished with an FSP of 111.5%. So basically he was over 10% quicker over the last half mile than he was through the race as a whole. And he was one of only 2 horses to record a sub 13-second furlong in the second last furlong. So, like, again, he's got that turn of foot. And that's what I just think is quite interesting, that actually, you know, I think he's versatile enough for 3 miles over fences and whatever the race throws at him, if you know what I mean.
Yep. Okay. So is that who you're going to side with over Ballyburn?
You know what? I'm going to be brave and I'm going to say yes.
Okay. All right. I'll bet you a coffee.
Yeah, a coffee. That sounds sensible. Yeah.
A latte. It'll be a caramel latte. We'll go really extravagant.
I'll treat you with an extra shot. Just saying, like, if
it's always an extra shot for me. There's no energy unless it's an extra shot latte. All right.
Of coffee to be specific. Like
oh no! You got to throw the whiskey. Obviously. Although, to be honest about it, it would probably make for a more fun show if I did just start lashing down the Jemson drink responsibly and all that malarkey. So yesterday, when I had Nico de Boinville on the show, he's just not having any of this Cheltenham doesn't suit John Bond stuff. He's completely dismissive of it. But as Gavin Lynch said, Nico de Boinville's a very confident man. And I think that's maybe one of the things that actually really works for him with horses. That confidence exudes into his horses and that comes out in him. So if there was a problem with him, maybe Nico is the one who will make sure that doesn't happen later. What I find fascinating is Aidan Coleman, his former rider, is absolutely adamant he is not as effective at Cheltenham as he is elsewhere. But the more you listen to Nicky Henderson, he says, look, when he got beaten in the Arkle, we weren't happy with him. He wasn't right. And his previous time, he gets torn to shreds by Constitution Hill, who rips everything to shreds. So this is a really fascinating one. The most interesting thing I saw was he only has a 7.7 jump index from you. So it's fine, but it's hardly spectacular.
Yeah, and I think the key with him is that he's actually pretty at that level. Like, take away Clarence House 24, because obviously that was just a bit of a disaster. Like, that's not him. So you can't say, oh, he underperforms at Cheltenham. Like, that just backs it up. Because that's just like, horses can make mistakes. Like, that wasn't just not getting on with Cheltenham. That was probably him not getting on with James Bowen. Like, I hate to do that to a jockey, but clearly not. But ever since Nico's got on him, to be fair, he's been fairly consistent. Like, his jump index is his last 3 starts. So the Schlur, he was 7.8. Sandown in the Tingle Creek, he was 7.7. And then the Clarence, 7.6. And then the Clarence House, he was 7.7. So he's very much at that 7.7 level. Like, that is his jumping. And I think, again, what's key with jump index is you've got to think of it as like fast, slick jumping. So it's not saying, look, he's not a good jumper, because clearly he knows where his feet are now. Like, he's very grown up. He's consistent now. And that's what the jump index is telling us. But he's not really super fast, slick, accurate like some too much. And he just hangs in the air a little bit. And I just think that is a slight Achilles heel for him. But then you've got to remember what he's achieved whilst jumping like that. So, you know, if he can achieve what he's achieved and there's nothing else to really take him on, then, you know, you can't really argue his chances, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem, Paige, is the lack of opposition. So my gut instinct with a horse, and this, I was saying this to you off air beforehand, like, this is really weird in terms of how I'm going to say this, but why am I so bullish about a horse like Ballyburn, who clearly he's slower over his fences, but his jumping to me is fine. It's good. It was good at Kempton, except for the last where, as Ross Millar was saying, he banks it. But he's clearly slow at Leopardstown. So I'm assuming that jumping's going to improve, but I'm making that assumption. Why am I so bullish about him at even money? And yet I look at John Bonnet evens and go, I don't know about you, when he's just beating everything that's put in front of him, including the Ryanair Chase winner from last year, who's bolted up at Windsor this season, and he made him look ordinary at Aintree. So when Nicky's horses weren't right. So I don't know. Maybe I need to rethink this and get my head around it proper. If you do want to take him on, who is the most obvious one to take him on with?
Well, I think if we'd had the normal rain that we normally come to expect for Cheltenham, which normally makes it horribly testing and, you know, miserable for everyone, I would have been like, right, an Ergomen should be like odds on. You know, I think that Clarence House run was not as bad. I mean, as in, I think it was underperforming, but you've got to remember that that's like the only race he's been beaten in, and he's been beaten in it now 3 times. And actually, you know, again, like, not to bang on about jumping, but this is a really interesting way of, you know, again, when we're thinking about looking on the Racing TV website and using the metrics. So using that jump index and length gain jumping to complement each other is really interesting in this specific case. Because we don't have loads of data on Energumen, because obviously we only have data from at the start March 23. So we've got his Champion Chase win in 2023. Then the only other race we've got for him is the Hilly Way in 2024. But crucially for me, Champion Chase 2023, he scored an 8.5. In the Hilly Way, he scored an 8.3, despite, you know, having a bit of a dodgy jump at the second last. So clearly he's able to jump very slickly. Now, in the Clarence House in 2025, so the one that we just watched, he got 7.5. So, like, considerably lower than his best. And you could see that watching him jump around. Like, he just didn't look comfortable, did he? He was a bit stuttery. Like, he just didn't look himself or in any sort of rhythm. And in the lengths game jumping, we could see that he forfeited 4 lengths to John Bon. Now, if he jumped to an 8.5 when John Bon got 7.7, like, does that mean that he would have actually gained lengths on John Bon jumping? Like, if he got into a rhythm? So then that 4 lengths that he forfeited jumping maybe could have been 4 lengths that he gained on jumping from John Bon. And then that gap looks pretty tight. So if he can get into a rhythm, or on good water, good soft ground at Cheltenham is, you know, going to be ideal. But if he can get into a better jumping rhythm on a track we know he loves, I think that gap gets a lot smaller.
And it's worth bearing in mind. Do you factor this in, that he's been beaten twice in the Clarence House Chase? And maybe that was part of what Willie Mullins was doing with his preparation, that even though you're going over to the UK to run a horse in a race, but you're running him on ground that's not ideal, and it's just, this is routine, and trainers are creatures of habit. So you know he's going to get beaten, but you're running him there anyway because it's worked before. If the system's not broken, don't fix it.
And surely he had a less tough race this year than he did when he was beaten by Shiskin and then went to win a Champion Chase. But he hasn't got his ground. Like, that's my biggest, like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the ground is for sure a problem. But if he is a 3-time Champion Chase winner, that's going to be one hell of a story. Day 3, we'll begin with the Ryanair Chase. As we record, we're still not entirely certain what exactly is going on with Fact to File. Is he? Isn't he? There's all kinds of rumours in Ireland that he might actually go for the Gold Cup, particularly on this ground. But we do know for a fact that Ile Francais will go. Jeff Banks' bet goes 11-8 Fact to File, and this is non-runner, no bet. Ile Francais 3-1. Gaelic Warrior goes here instead of the Champion Chase 9-2. Could that be a deciding factor for Fact to File? Not really, because he's JP. Protectorate, the reigning champion, is 5-1, and Ergamine won't go. Jello 12s, and then Jungle Boogie, Envoy Len, and Heartwood. Well, nothing but confidence for all three from Henry de Bromhead. The one I really took confidence in was Envoy Len, who apparently is working very, very well, unbelievably well. And the former winner of this race is a 14-1 shot, and unlike last year, he comes into this race with an extra race. He hadn't raced since November when he was beaten in this race a year ago. This time he has gone to the King George, and that worked before. So what is the RaceIQ key data telling us about the Ryanair Chase page?
It's the best race of the week.
All these people saying we got to get rid of the Ryanair, we got to get shot of the Ryanair. I didn't dare ask Henry de Bromhead that when he's sending 3 runners to it, and now you're telling me it's the race of the week.
It really, like, don't get me wrong, like, again, it's like some of the others, like Arkle versus Brown Advisory, like, got that superstar. But considering most of these would be like second favourite, second, third, fourth favourite in the Gold Cup, like, it's a really exciting race.
This is a deep race.
Yeah, it's a very deep race, isn't it? So yeah, I think I personally would love to see Fact to File in this race. I can't have him over 3 miles 2 at Cheltenham. I just don't think his style of racing will suit that. It's such test of stamina, and you know, I think the key thing for me is that in the John Durkin, Galopin went really hard in front, and it was like Paul Townend like jumped out and went, right, I'm going to make use of Galopin's stamina, and I'm going to try and run them into the ground. And he didn't quite, you know, he obviously came on for the run. But Fact to File loved, like, just picking him off at the end and using that, like, he's got a really high cruising speed that I think he's shown since as well. Like, he's a very strong traveller, isn't he? Like, that's half the problem over 3 miles. And he's also, like, a really, really slick jumper. Like, his jumping part 4 just demonstrates the fact that he is, like, really slick. And over 3 miles, I don't think he can make use of that because he's always having to, like, take back. And actually, in the Irish Gold Cup last time, he was hitting, like, speeds of 35 miles an hour. But again, it's that, like, he can't go steady and then sustain the speed to the end. I think he's going to be much better suited to, like, a faster pace where he can just roll and gallop and jump. And, you know, his win in the Brown Advisory last year was really impressive. So, I don't know. And I can't have, like, I love Ile Francais. Like, who couldn't love Ile Francais? Like, the story's lovely. But his run in the King George just wasn't the same horse, and he's had so many bleeding issues. I don't think he's the same horse that won the Corto Star from what we've seen this season. But, you know, I know that's hard to really properly judge.
Well, Adam Mills is a brilliant French racing expert, and he's made the point a number of times in this show that if they're keen to win a Grade 1 in Britain, it is madness to be coming to Cheltenham. They should be going to Aintree. They'd be an absolute certainty for the bowl. And he's not entirely certain that he's going to love the undulations left-handed Cheltenham. And I would just back him blind. Whatever Adam Mills says, I'm happy to go along with that. James Reevely was very bullish about him on the podcast. He gave a very positive update. But Gavin Lynch can't back a bleeder. I'd struggle to back a bleeder, and he's blown out twice in his last 4 starts. There's just enough there to make you go, yeah, you can win at 3-1, and if you do, we'll salute it. It'd be great to see a French winner, but I think you just have to let him go. Anybody else to mention? Anything about Envoyalin?
Only that he gave his race away last year through his jumping, technically. Like, if you're adding up on the next slide, please. you can see the race from last year, and basically there was like a 5-length swing between Protectorat and Envoyalin, because Protectorat was just got in such a lovely jumping rhythm like he did at Windsor last time, and Envoyalin was at like a 5-length disadvantage, getting beaten like 4. And you just sort of think, actually, if you're just not good enough to beat Protectorat, then A, you're going to find Protectorat too good this year, and B, where does that leave you in terms of form when you're thinking about the Fat Trials and the Ile Francais and stuff? Is my kind of view on him, unfortunately.
What do you think of Protectorat?
I think the ground might come up a bit quick for him.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest worry for him. Like, he's a really strong travelling and staying 2.5 miler on bottomless ground where nothing else can go with him. But I just wonder whether the pace of this race, you've got Ile Francais, he's going to set really strong gallop in front. I just wonder whether the pace might catch him out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I also think he's a solid 165, 167 horse when he really fires. Envoyalin is a solid 164, 165, who can probably, even at the age of 11, could probably get to that level if he needed to. I think he's a really game horse. Jello is very interesting, but is probably below that, although he was good in the Denman, and he's a horse I really like, and he has experience of Cheltenham from last season, and seems a better horse this year, so he's definitely a player. Jungle Boogie's probably below this level. Heartwood could bridge the gap and could get there. But doesn't Factifile isn't he just a non-stayer who's really Alaho 2.0? And he can be a 170 horse. And so get into a good rhythm behind a strong travelling horse who's going to tow you into the race, and Ile Francais and a couple of other horses who will tow you along too. And Mark Walsh is just sitting there on the bridle, ready to blow kisses to the crowd and pop the champagne.
Yeah, I think he's my, I wouldn't say he's my nap, but he's my value of the favourites. I think he offers best value of the favourites at the moment, personally.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but now that you've said that, run him, JP. Run him in the Ryanair. Sacrifice the Gold Cup. Allow Galopin Des Champs to have the glory of 3 Gold Cups. Don't do anything to spoil it. Get out of his way. Go take the Ryanair, and then you can challenge for a Gold Cup in a year's time, which I don't think you'll win because I'm not sure you'll stay. Stayers Hurdle. Is it going to be a second win for Tihupu? He probably should be going for 3 wins, to be honest about it, but he's a little bit like the horses we just mentioned. I know what Tihupu is. I know what he's able to do. And I was very confident he would do it a year ago. The problem in my mind, Paige Fuller, and I really need you to guide me on this, is unlike last year, this year, there's at least 3 horses in this race that could literally be anything. I have no idea how good Lucky Place, Mystical Power, or the Walk Park could be, and they might just be able to get to Tihupu's level. So if he runs his race, he can win, but one of those 3 might be very capable of getting to what he can do. And I haven't even mentioned Home by the Lee, who seems better than ever this year, which is extraordinary at the age of 10. But Joseph Brown's horses are in flying form, and they sound very, very bullish about him as well. Take me through the RaceIQ data for the Stayers Hurdle, please.
Yes, this, I seem to remember last year we had this discussion because I was a bit like lukewarm on Tihupu because, he is a steady jumper. And so again, he's another one of these 3 milers, which he does 3 miles suits him better because he doesn't have to be slick. So he doesn't get put on the back foot in between his hurdles. Like, he clearly likes a test of stamina over 2.5, but his jumping can let him down over 2.5, whereas over 3, he's kind of got that turn of foot, but being over 3 miles, it gives him time not to be put on the back foot from his jumping. But I think the race was just run to suit last year. And I think he's the sort of horse who will need the race to be run to suit to win the race. So last year there was no pace, because there frequently isn't any pace in the 3 mile hurdle division. There was no pace, and they quickened up massively for home, and his top speed of 36 miles an hour was like the quickest of any hurdler at Cheltenham Festival last season. So like, he's got a massive turn of foot, like, and we know that because he's won over, you know, all distances basically. So if the race turned into a sprint, I think it'll be really difficult to beat. But horses in here which we know need a strong gallop, so surely one of them has got to be a bit brave and go, right, we're going to make sure that this turns into a real stamina test. And then I think a horse like Home by the Lee could well outstay him up the hill. You know, like when he got beaten by Side de Burley, who, to be honest, is just, he was in between handicaps in the top level. He wasn't a proper grade 1 horse, was he? Like when he got beaten by Side de Burley, his T Hoop's FSP was 102. Last year, when he won the race, it was 108. So that sort of shows the difference in the style of races. And I just worry that if it's a stronger pace, his jumping, there's more pressure then on his jumping, because he's got to make up that ground in between his hurdles, where he's a bit slow, can't use his turn of foot in the same way. But that's a big if, because realistically on paper, I don't actually see where the pace is coming from. I'm just hoping that one of the others like Gal Road or someone like that go, right, the only way we're going to get him beat is going fast. So, you know, it's an interesting race in terms of race tactics, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, that has me worried. So who's going to be the horse that really takes advantage if he doesn't quite perform, if the race isn't run to suit, if it does turn into more of a stamina test, or if for some reason he doesn't fire on the day?
See, I think Home by the Lee was quite impressive in the Savills Hurdle. Like the way he stayed on, like I was watching him like, oh my God, this thing is going backwards. And actually you've pulled up this page, which is showing how slick a jumper Mystical Power is. And, you know, actually, you know, yes, he got stuffed by Sergino in the fighting fifth, but we haven't even seen him over 3 miles yet. So who knows what he's going to do? Like,
yeah. Just on him, very briefly, I mean, obviously he's by Galileo out of any power. She was second in the Stayers Hurdle. The ability is there in terms of pedigree. He's a dual grade 1 winner from last season. He's second in the Supreme Novice Hurdle. Yeah, you can crab that form if you want to. I wouldn't be as quick to crab it as many people are. He's Nichols Canyon 2.0, except Nichols Canyon had better form. Like, this fellow was tailed off the last time we saw him. He fell out the back of the telly. But he was being sent off well back to beat Sergino in a fighting fifth.
He's a funny horse to follow, isn't he? And like you sort of think, like, is he going for this race? Like, I haven't actually heard much chat about him. Like, it's always, yeah. And you sort of think, like, Willie wouldn't send him for no reason. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not that sort of trainer, is he?
Well, he pulled Imperia Pass from Cheltenham entirely last season and has done it again this year, despite the fact that he's a Cheltenham Festival winner, because he doesn't feel like there's a suitable race. And I'd asked Patrick Mullins at the start of last season, hey, out of interest, like, if it doesn't quite work out for Imperia Pass in the Champion Hurdle, would you go for a Stayers? And he said, oh God, no, that'd be like Plan Z. So if you've got a horse of similar enough talent, why are you prepared to run him in a Stayers Hurdle but not a very high class horse like Imperia Pass? It must be because you think he can run well.
I think we'll learn a lot about the division. Has a lot of like young horses, which I think we'll learn a lot about this. Like, we've sort of been resettling, haven't we, after the era of like Paisley Park and all of those ones that were running like together, and we've kind of got a new brigade coming in, and it's going to be really interesting how they will stack up against each other. Because actually, Lucky Place is the sort of horse which, you know, he's been running over 2.5 miles. So actually, if he's as good as Henderson thinks, maybe he's that horse that might lay up with Tihupu if it turns into a sprint. Like, there's so many questions around this race that, you know, you'd almost be waiting to back them in race, wouldn't you? Because they all need such different conditions that, yeah, it's impossible to tell.
Okay, of the prices, or just overall, who would be your big alternative to Tihupu? He's the one they all have to beat, although you are making a big case for Home by the Lee. But is that the horse you'd be siding with?
I think so, personally. Yeah, I think Home by the Lee, like, he completed the final furlong 1.2 seconds quicker than the runner-up in the Savills Hurdle, which, considering how outpaced he was turning into the straight, like, he's a proper stout stayer. But it's got to be a proper staying race for him. Because, like, last year, he just didn't. I mean, he was slower at top speed than, I can't remember off the top of my head. You can probably actually look on the thing. Home by the Lee, Cheltenham last year, his top speed was only 35.5 miles an hour compared to Tihupu's 36. So, you know, again, like, Tihupu's just quicking away from him and he's not being able to peg him back. So if that happens again, he's not going to beat him. But you just sort of think, like, surely people are going to try and get Tihupu beat by going faster. That's kind of what I'm hoping for tactics-wise, but I'd probably be waiting for in-race in that case, if you know what I mean.
See, my feeling would be, if that's how it plays out, I'd be amazed if something like the Wall Park or Lucky Place isn't the one who really benefits from it. I'm sure that Home by the Lee will be benefiting from it too, but I know what he can do. He's a 159 horse. That's his best. One of those are the horses I'd be more interested in terms of who's going to come flying through. But he's very solid, and I really respect your opinion. So Home by the Lee, horse to be keeping a very close eye on. Fourth and final day, Triumph Hurdle. East India Doc's jump index of 8.9 is the second highest recorded at Cheltenham this season. Does that just mean, in terms of what he's been able to do so far, the engine he has and his jumping ability, that he is absolutely the one they all have to beat, and that could be the defining factor in why he wins?
Yes. I don't know. Like, maybe, I think, again, it goes back to that, you know, why do you like get more tingles from Ballyburn versus John Bon? Like, because East India Doc versus the Lambo, in my opinion, is kind of, I think, what I'm doing slightly, because East India Doc is this lovely, strong, travelling horse that, you know, he looks like he's doing it easily because he's just travelling really strongly through the races, jumping really slick, and looks like he's always got a bit more. Whereas Lamber's the complete opposite, isn't he? Like, when he won at Ascot, and actually I watched his race back in France as well, and he kind of runs through the race in exactly the same way as he did at Ascot, looking like a 3-mile chaser, but with the speed of a 2-mile hurdler. Like, they are positions in horses, and I just love the way that East India Doc travels and jumps through his race, and it's kind of hard not to enjoy watching that a bit more. And I don't know whether it's that's swaying me and getting so excited about East India Doc, or the fact that actually he is just generally that exciting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's no mention there of the third favourite, Hello Neighbour, which concerns me. What does the Dublin Racing Festival RaceIQ data tell us?
So they went so as you can see from the doc, I'm going to have to, basically they went quite steady in that race, but when you compare his final furlongs to final furlongs at other points of other races at the DRF, like, even though they went steady, his final furlongs weren't that quick. So he covered the last half mile in 57.4 seconds. And then Majborough covered his final half mile in 56.4 seconds, so a second. And Galopin Des Champs, over 3 mile fences, 56.1 seconds.
Oh.
So that is my only reservation, that, yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Again, it's a bit like that New Lion, like, you don't know what he's going to do. Like, he's clearly quite a strong travelling horse because they have to stick a hood on to get him to settle, and actually he'll be able to lay out with a strong pace in the Triumph. But my worry is that he won't have the speed of, say, Lulamba or East India Dock. But he's been pretty impressive nonetheless. And his jumping also is very good, as you can see there. And he did score an 8.9 last time at the DRF. So he's another one that where Lulamba only scored a 6.7 again. It's not that he jumped badly, he just jumped very big and slow in the air, which he also visually looked like he did in France. You know, both East India Dock and Hello Neighbour have that advantage, but just those sectionals put a question mark over Hello Neighbour for me.
Oh, you have burst my Hello Neighbour bubble massively. Massively, Paige. I've been so bullish about him. He's unbeaten on 2 starts in the flat. He's rated 97 by the IHRB handicapper after only 2 starts. He's thrown into a Grade 2 hurdle on his debut. He goes and wins it. He goes for the Grade 1 Spring Juvenile Hurdle. It's the most recognisable trial for this race. 9 of the last 13 winners have emerged from that race. He wins it. He cruises through the race. He's got enough in the tank to hold off Galileo Dame. All the talk going into the Dublin Racing Festival was Galileo Dame was working the house down in Owling Hill and was expected to run a massive race. She was a really good horse in the flat herself as well. Everything was there for this horse to come along. And you come in with a massive Race IQ data pin and burst the bubble.
I know. And I feel really like, now you saying it, because as you say, the race he won says that he should be a Triumph winner. But when you're comparing that last half mile to our Gold Cup winner, and he's well over a second slower, I don't know. It's just a big reservation. I don't know.
Not good. Not good. Believe me, not good. Okay, East India Dock is the 15th favourite with Jeff Banks bet. Bear in mind, as we're recording, this is not no bet because this is the futures market. Luamba 2-1. Hello Neighbour 11-2 Page. I kept on saying this is such a big price. Lady Vega LN 12s, Palladium 14s. There was a big note of boost for him, and to be fair, his form has worked out pretty well.
He's, you know what? Like, it's funny. He's a bit of a in the office. He's a bit of a like secret support horse, if you know what I mean. Like, because his jumping, even though Nicky Henson said that he had spent all this time working on his jumping, like he didn't jump very well, like he couldn't do the work, he couldn't get the work into him because he didn't jump very well. He got an 8.8 on the jump index on his hurdling debut. So I don't know, look, you can look at it either 2 ways. You can look at it and go, again, if you're looking at the data on the website and you can, interpret, you can either go, he jumped an 8.8 and he still only won by that distance, or you could go, he wasn't fit, as per Nicky Henson said, and he jumped an 8.8. So if you piece it together with, okay, he should be better in between his hurdles, and he's now got it over the hurdles, maybe he's overlooked. And actually, the interesting thing about Palladium was, I think the ground drying will help him. So there were only 3 horses in that race at Huntingdon that had stride lengths shorter than his. His average stride length was only 6.29 meters, and only 3 horses had like shorter stride lengths. And to me, reading that, like, again, this is my interpretation, I was like, does that mean that he just couldn't get through the ground? Like, it was really testing that day at Huntingdon. Like, does that mean that his legs were just tied together, and will we see a completely different horse on better ground?
Shorter the stride in bad ground gives you an indication that that horse didn't actually handle the ground that well. So the fact that he was able to win.
Yes, and it's very much my anecdotal interpretation, because sometimes people getting to know the data themselves and sort of trying to find nuggets of things that might suggest. So, a lot of the time on softer ground, you're not going to be able to get that same extension of the stride because, you're not able to bounce off the stride. So effectively, a stride length is how much ground you can cover with the turn of the stride. So you always have a longer stride length on better ground because you'll be able to cover more ground with each stride. But I think the key for me is the fact that in comparison to the other horses in the race, he was so much shorter. So he was covering so much less ground than the other horses with each stride. He just, I don't know. I'm hoping, I'm clambering on to the fact that that might have been a signal that he just couldn't stride out. But that is like very anecdotal. Like, don't judge Ellipse's very, sophisticated data science with my anecdotal. I've looked at the data and think that this might be an.
Well, my not at all sophisticated data analysis was just the interview with Nico de Boinville yesterday. I thought it was quite pointed just how much he was emphasizing this horse has a chance. Like, he's a big player. Do not forget Palladium. And that I don't think it was a real stretch for him to be getting on Luamba, but that's because of the regard they hold the horse in. I didn't feel like he was just saying this to spare blushes because he cost so much money. I felt like he was saying it because, no, don't underestimate this horse, and that he wouldn't be that surprised if it's the maroon silks come flying past him and he's very frustrated and very annoyed at the wrong decision. That he is a German Derby winner, and he did get within 6 lengths of Rebels Romance as well. Who's almost certainly going to be winning another Group 1 in Dubai for the Mighty Godolphin. So dare we talk about Meydan and Dubai and flat racing in a Cheltenham podcast? How dare we? The potato race. So my small, feeble mind will just tell you that you need a slugger, something battle-hardened, lots of experience, and preferably 20-1 plus. And then we can talk about who you're betting on for the potato race. What is your race IQ data pointing to in terms of a slugger? Or is it possible that the big Westerner, as a half-sister to Stay Away Faye, will just defy all that and go and win?
This is always such a tough race to call, isn't it? I think... Which race do you think that Yellow Clay goes into?
Oh, I would be shocked if he doesn't go for the Turners.
Yeah, I think it's just not that competitive a race, really, is it?
If he did turn up here, Paige, would he win it?
I think so. Like, I
Gordon,
think, again, he's got that, like...
Gordon, Kevin O'Ryan, listen up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's got that speed and stamina, but that's just anecdotal because he's probably going for the Turners, and I've put him here, but that was just their new space. But yeah, I think the Big Westerner was impressive because again, she had that sustained speed to the line, which I think again over these 3 mile races is sometimes more important than just being able to gallop at the same pace for 3 miles, if that makes sense. She gets the £7. When she won at Limerick, she was the only horse to post a 3 sub-14 second furlongs in the last half a mile, which it's just that kind of style of running that I think suits this race. You can't see Jasmine DeVoe. Like, I know I said that Kopek Des Bordes was a camel first time out, but like he really can't jump. Like, I don't think you even need the jump index to tell you that he cannot jump.
Oh, but Paige, there's only 2 flights of hurdles in the final 7 furlongs of the potato race, so he'll be fine. He can't jump.
Like, you can't, yeah, and the thing is, like, there's such, like, because it's probably the least competitive of any of the races, like, you're going to get plenty of runners in this. I don't know. I really like, and it might well be me just ex-Snowden. I really like Wendigo. I think he ran a blinder in behind. Like, obviously, okay, don't get me wrong. Like, I know, looking here again, you've got JetBlue, who's very impressive at Cheltenham, despite not jumping very well. Look at last year. Stella Story only got a jump index of 6.9, so you don't need to jump very well. Like, all of these things go into the mix, but like Wendigo last time in the shallow hurdle, you thought he was going to pull up down the back because his slow jumping like put him so much on the back foot. So he was like losing 0.75 miles an hour on average more than the New Lion over his hurdles. He was taking a second longer to get back up to speed than the New Lion. He actually had the fastest top speed in the race, and he finished off with the same FSP as the New Lion. And so despite putting himself so much on the back foot through his jumping, he like stayed on that strongly to the line, but also had speed. And I just think that in this 3-mile race where he's not going to be having to play catch up quite so much in between his hurdles, like, think how hard he hit the line at Newbury from nowhere. I don't know. I think he's the more interesting bet in this race, I think.
What about Ballybow? Top speed at Clonmel of 36.32, at Fairyhouse 33.56. Good entry speed at Fairyhouse as well. And his form worked out well from St. Stephen's Day, or Boxing Day, Paige, as you would call it. But the thing that's sort of telling for me is that the first time he took on Ballygunner Castle, he's a massive prize. The second time he takes on Ballygunner Castle, he's the odds-on favourite to go and beat him.
Yeah. I mean, I think the beauty of this race is, like, it's always such an open race, isn't it? Like, and actually, as you say, like, they obviously went, oh, whoops, after that, like, first one going, oh, yeah, he clearly needs a trip, and he's clearly an okay horse. Yeah, he's pretty impressive. And again, like, he's probably one that, you know, doesn't jump amazing, but actually, like, he doesn't need to in this case. And he's clearly very talented. But I just love this race because it just throws up all sorts of results.
It's bonkers. It's an insane race. And for that reason, 20-1 Ballybow with Jeff Banks bet is going to be my pick. I really, really like him. I quite like Argento Boy as well, but there's a bizarre statistic for this race. I don't know if you're a massive Trends fan, Paige. Some people go, oh, the Trends say that such and such a horse with 4 legs is the only type of horse that can win this race, you know. Yes, you can dismiss the stuff if you like, but for some reason, only one horse who ran in a graded bumper has won the potato race. And my interpretation of that is, oh, this goes to backwards, slow types that don't show any sign of precocity and are just really dour stayers, which would take Argento Boy out of it. But if Argento Boy was just sent over on the boat because, it's Willie Mullins, why not? Then he's interesting, especially with his form with the favourite, the Big Westerner, or who should be favourite because Final Demand is not going to go here, I hope. So I'm going to go with Ballybow. I think 20-1 with Jeff Banks bet is fair. Who is your pick based on the RaceIQ data?
Wendigo sounds like he fits your stats as well because he hasn't won in a graded bumper. So I'm going to stick to my guns for Wendigo. Okay.
Maybe you should do the related contingency double. The New Line, Wendigo. In fact, you should do that. And you can do it with Jeff Banks bet. Sign up now using the promo code FFP500. 10% of any net losses back after your first month of betting, up to £500, just in time for the Cheltenham Festival. But you don't need to worry about any net losses because you've got Paige Fuller's RaceIQ data. You've got all the team with sensational tips. Adam Mills back on the show, Liam Firkin back on the show, Paul Jacobs back on the show, Kate Young, George Gorman, all marking your card. And we've got all these top-class interviews as well. Robbie Power still to come. He's got some very interesting things to say about some of the Rob Core horses. He's in great form. The Nico de Boinville and Henry de Bromhead podcasts are available for you now on the Apple and Spotify podcast feeds for the Final Furlong podcast. They're exclusive there. JeffBanks.bet. Use your promo code FFP500. Sign up now and take full advantage of all the goodies, offers, and you can stream all of Cheltenham on the Jeff Banks website. British and Irish Racing there too. Gold Cup page. We've come to the last race. As the madness of Cheltenham continues, and this is going to be an in-depth 17-hour conversation breaking down the intricacies and elaborate detail about the stayers for the goal. Oh, wait, no, it's just simple. Galopin Des Champs wins. How far does he win the Gold Cup by, Paige?
On good ground, less far, because I think Banbridge is just behind him. I do love Banbridge. He's not going to beat Galopin. But Galopin just he's just gorgeous, isn't he? He's so gorgeous. And he's just better than ever. Like, that is so bonkers to say it about a horse. But he's just better than ever. You can tell that Paul Townend has just... I think, actually, Paul probably learnt a bit from the John Durkin, in my opinion, because he obviously, as I said earlier, went out thinking, I'm going to outstay these, because that's what he did all of last season. Like, last season, Galopin just galloped them into the ground on heavy ground. This season, he's been leaving them in the dust on quick ground, like dictating really quite steady fractions in his last two races and sprinting home. Like, as we mentioned earlier, his closing half mile at the DRF, I think, is the fastest of the DRF. Sorry. In the Irish Gold Cup, his final half mile was quicker than any other races at the DRF.
A 3 mile stare.
3 mile stare. Like, but we know he can stay. Like, we know that on bottomless ground, he's like a stout stayer. So, he's just gorgeous, isn't he? He just wins.
So, Banbridge is obviously ground dependent. There's no point in even turning up unless it's good ground, because we saw what happened in the Ryanair. And to be fair, when he gets his conditions, he's obviously very good. He's able to win a 2 mile chase at Punchestown and a 3 mile King George against Elia Francais, who'd been devastatingly impressive in the Cotto Star the year before. It's there, you can see it. Is there anything in the RaceIQ data that would tell you that he will stay the 3 miles, 2.5 furlongs?
Yeah, I think his win in the King George shows that, because even though they went quite an honest gallop, like, he visually looked like he picked up the pieces because of the ride. That was the ride, I think. Paul Townend on Banbridge, that was just my moment where I was like, that was just the most sensational ride on him in the King George, wasn't it? Like, because he was just out of the back, because I backed him in the King George. And so I was quite
we might have put him up on the podcast as well.
obviously that's where I heard it, yeah.
And after timing is, of course, allowed.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But you know when you're sat there going, oh my God, he's just not even letting him in the race?
Yeah, which is how I was feeling.
Like, and you were just sat there going, oh my God, like, he's never going to make up that ground on Ile Francais. And then suddenly, whoosh, he just quickens. Like, and it's not that he's picking up the pieces. I think that's what was most impressive about the King George, was that he didn't just pick up the pieces. Like, he actually genuinely quickened at the end of the race. Like, you can see there, his FSP at Kempton that day was 107.44% off a good honest gallop. And if that doesn't tell you he's going to stay on a strong, Kempton takes a bit of staying. I don't know. I think that just proves it. And don't forget, that day the ground might have said it was good, but it was probably more like good soft as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's not going to beat Galopin, but yeah, he's going to be right there, I think. No,
but he is a credible threat, and he comes from a stable that are in tremendous form, and a stable that, to be fair, they could have gone for the Ryanair. And on this ground, they would be the ones to beat in it. They've never wavered. They've never wavered for 1 second. It's never even entered their minds. No, we're going for the Gold Cup. And considering you've got connections of other horses going, oh yeah, that's a prestigious race, but no, we're going to go for the softer option. That's, for one thing, to be commended. For another thing, though, it's maybe the reason you're going for this race is because you genuinely think you can win.
Yeah. And it's such a tough one because, like, and maybe Galopin just hasn't come across a Banbridge yet on better ground. You don't know, do you? Like, he's been beaten by Fast or Slow, who was a slick jumper at Punchestown at the end of the season on quick ground. Like, maybe Banbridge do that, but then Cheltenham 3 mile too stiffer than a Punchestown 3 mile on quick ground in spring. So, yes, Banbridge is a slicker jumper, but you don't necessarily want that over 3 mile too. And even then, like, Galopin got a 8.7 jump index in the Irish Gold Cup, which is by far the highest jump index. Like, he never recorded an 8, which is effectively a good jump index, before Leopardstown at Christmas, and he scored 8 at Christmas and 8.7, both on like fairly quick ground. which you wouldn't necessarily have put down to be Galopin's favourite ground. So
So your race IQ data is telling us that Banbridge is what the betting would suggest is the big danger. And yet, the way you're speaking so confidently, there's nothing in the data that would make you fearful that, yeah, he's good, he's a King George winner, he's a Cheltenham Festival winner, but you're no Galopin Des Champs.
Yeah, I mean, the only problem with Banbridge is we've never seen him over. He's very untried, isn't he? Like, so, like nothing. Like the way he won the King George, you couldn't discount him from, because we haven't even seen how good he could be over this trip. Yeah, it is interesting. He nearly beat another man. You're like, how is this horse so like? How is this horse so? And he's a really interesting one where in time, I'd love to see how we can dig deeper into the data. Like he obviously has like quite a high cruising speed, and he loves being able to quicken. Like when Solness set those ridiculous fractions on his first run back this season, and he just completely bummed out. Like they just went so fast, and he just hated that. And he does seem like the sort of horse who can just jump and gallop at a pace and then quicken off it, and that could be dangerous for Galopin. But then I'm talking about Galopin from last season. Galopin of this season has done exactly that. So where's the Achilles heel?
There's got to be somebody at the Jockey Club just like freaking out going, it's the 100th running of the Gold Cup. He's going to be only the 5th horse in history to win 3 Gold Cups. Racing needs this. It needs this. It needs Constitution Hill and it needs Galopin Des Champs. Just make this happen. JP, go for the Ryanair with Fact to File. Oh, the ground might not be great for Banbridge. Like the story is going to be incredible. I really admired Henry de Bromhead being on the show yesterday going, oh yeah, I'm not cheering him on. Like my horse is going to beat him. But if it happens that Galopin Des Champs beats Monty Star, then fair enough, yeah, we'll cheer him on. But no, Monty Star is the one we're cheering on. It would be incredible for the sport if he does it. But it does feel like he's going to, Paige. I mean, for all that I like Banbridge, for all that he's a super talent, if Factifile rocks up, he's interesting. Monty Star, I've never really seen it, but I get why people do. It just all seems in place there, Paige. He is going to be a 3-time Gold Cup winner.
Yeah, and I think the key thing with Galopin is we're not talking about him doing it because there's no competition. We're doing it because he's got no questions to answer.
Yes.
So John, you look at the other evens favourites across the festival, and they've all got questions to answer. Like we've gone through questions, but John Bonty, Hoopu, Ballyburn, like all of really, really short price favourites, there's still a little inkling that maybe if this happened, or maybe if this horse turned up and did this. Whereas Galopin's the only horse where you can go, how on earth does anyone beat him?
Yeah. They don't. Galopin Des Champs wins the Gold Cup. You'll hear it live on TalkSport and TalkSport 2. You'll see it live on Racing TV, and all the Race IQ data will be there to break down exactly how he won it. And if he didn't, well, we're just all going to have to hug each other and go, what? But he will. I'm very, very confident he will. Out of interest, how accurate is the jumping metrics at predicting winners?
So that's a really interesting question, and it's again something like the more data we get, the more we'll be able to sort of dive into it all. Like we haven't had a chance. So the career level jump index, so the pre-race kind of angle we've got, like the horses have to run twice to get at least twice. So we have to have like 2 reliable races to qualify for jump index. So because of the lack of Irish data, a lot of like large festivals don't have those pre-race career metrics. So we can't do that like pre-race, did it predict the winners? But I think there's a stat that our data scientists at Ellipse have pulled out that says basically about 30% of horses at Cheltenham track as a whole, for the 2 years worth of data we've got, 30% of winners have been the best jumpers in the race, so scored the highest jump index. So, I think that sort of shows that there is a correlation. But again, it's using that jumping data as part of form. So just because it's not the best jumper, what is that telling you? Is it the fact that it's slow in between its hurdles and it's a slow jumper? Or in Ballyburn's case, it doesn't need to be a good jumper. Like, it's all in the interpretation of like why that jumping data is significant. Or in an Ergoman's case in the Clarence House, that was a sub-performance for him in terms of jumping. Or even like actually one of the sort of handicap favourites that I'm not so sure about is Jaguar. Personal opinion, because his jumping has been improving so much, and his jump index last time out of 8.7 is like the 10th best jump index over fences we've seen at Cheltenham so far this season. Just this season. So you're going, right, so if he's improved his jumping every time and his handicap mark's been going up every time as well, like, how much improvement does he have left off his handicap mark? And if he doesn't jump to an 8.7 at Cheltenham and he jumps to, say, a 7.5, like, he's gone up £7 for a not as easy win as it could have been last time, or should have been, by how he was double handful turning into the straight. And you're like, that he's got to reproduce that, and he could well do, and his numbers are going in the right direction. But is there much room now for improvement, and has he kind of reached his ceiling in terms of improvement? That's the sort of thing that I personally like looking for with the jump index and the jumping data. It's like trying to find those nuggets that go, oh, actually, was he off last time? Is that going to be achievable to reproduce? Off colour rather than off.
Oh yes, of course. Was he off colour last time? I didn't think we were going to talk about handicappers. Actually, is there any other handicapper, handicap hurdler, handicap chaser that you should share some very valuable info about? Preferably one that was not off and will improve a ton.
No, I really stitched myself up now, because I have looked, but off the top of my head, I'm like, again, the Cheltenham blur is like real. So,
the Cheltenham mind fog is a very, very real symptom. Talk to your doctor if the Cheltenham mind fog affects you. It's amazing how much data you're inputting, how much stuff is going on, and how everything can just get away from you in the week leading up to it. My producer at TalkSport sent me a message today saying we're all going to need like 48 hours of sleep after 5:47 p.m. on Friday. And we only have to talk. You've got to do all the data and input analysis and preview shows like this. Road to Cheltenham with Lydia and Ruby. You're off the walls with work.
Yeah, but once I get there, I don't have to talk about them. I just like text. It's fine.
Think Paige is downplaying things there. Manic busy. Okay, of all the horses we've talked about, according to your data, according to your expert opinion, which is the one you are most confident about seeing in the winner's enclosure?
I mean, we're following this very quickly on from Galopin. Like, I think it's so boring to say it, but Galopin just doesn't get beat, I don't think.
Do not clip this out if it goes wrong. Only clip it out if he wins. That's the way. It's okay to have an opinion, and sometimes opinions can't be wrong. It's your opinion. Facts are what can be wrong, and we can change our opinions about facts. Did I cover for us there, Paige? Does that work, do you think? Where can we find out more information about RaceIQ?
So you can either go to our X feed, which is at race_IQ, or go to the Racing TV website, where in the results page you can find all of our metrics for free to have a look at. And we also have a few explainer pieces. We actually have just launched a RaceIQ.com that's a sort of more business site as well, showing a bit more of what we do as a sort of more general RaceIQ, sort of like that's how it works. So yeah, all really exciting times for to the RaceIQ contingency, and dare I say it, like, because it's just around the corner, I'm looking forward to the flat as well. You know, it's nearly coming around quick. Like, but we're not just jumps, folks. Like,
we set up a couple of stable tours this week, actually, so we're very excited for the flat too. But we don't. Yeah. Dare we even say it? Dare we? RaceIQ's fantastic page. It's absolutely brilliant. But one of the things that makes it brilliant is your ability to be able to communicate what RaceIQ data represents is absolutely superb. And I really appreciate all of your time. And I know that the listeners and the viewers do too. Best of luck for Cheltenham 2025. And please, God, we'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Emmet.
And thank you for watching, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Final Furlong podcast. I really hope you've enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you did, likes and shares are much appreciated. And we have more content coming your way very, very soon from Paige and I. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.
The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Jeff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at jeffbanks.bet.